Welcome to another RTD News Updates. And so today, as you can see from the theme surrounding me, it has to do with the state of Utah, and there's some gold and silver coins surrounding me as well. And so there's something happening out in Utah that I think is well worth mentioning. And of course, you really won't hear about it much on mainstream news other than a quick flyby news story, but yet it's another sign of what's developing in our monetary world. So I thought it's definitely worth sharing with you. And so just to give you an idea of what the subject head is about, from the title you can tell that it has to do with Utah lawmakers wanting gold and silver as an alternative form or a complementary form of currency to go along with the Federal Reserve notes. So today I have a few articles I want to share with you, something to do with what's happening in Utah, as well as recent developments in Arizona, and then a couple historical pieces to kind of show you what's the trend amongst several states, predominantly southern and western states, on their desire to implement bills into legislation in their states for gold and silver as legal tender, which it already is. So other than that, I want to just dive into the articles right away and give you an idea of what's going on. But before I actually get into that, I want to share with you just something that is already a law in and of itself, but not really known of that much. And it has to do with the legal tender law. And so according to Legal Information Institute, it says that according to U.S. Code Title 31, Subtitle 4, Chapter 51, Subchapter 1, Subarticle 5103, that legal tender code in and of itself says that the United States coins and currency, including Federal Reserve notes and circulating notes of Federal Reserve banks and national banks, are legal tender for all debts, public charges, taxes, and dues. Foreign gold or silver coins are not legal tender for debts. And so according to the legal tender law here already in the U.S. Code, United States coins and currency are legal tender. Now it's just a matter of how do you define that. And so that's kind of what the lawmakers are trying to rediscover or to re-implement back into normal circulation, which are gold and silver coins minted by the United States Mint. And so let's dive into today's articles. So as I mentioned, I have about 4 articles to share with you. And the first article here is from the Salt Lake Tribune. Second article here is from Zero Hedge. Third article here is from American Capital Times. And the fourth article here is from the Constitutional Tender Act website. And then the last article here is the legal tender decision, and it's actually a historical piece from the New York Times that was originally posted June 6, 1863. So they reposted it. So I want to dive into the very first article right now and kind of go through it as always, and all the links are below for you to dive into it, if you're interested in it yourself. And so just to give you an idea of what's going on here, it says the lawmaker wants Utah to invest in gold and silver. And this came out a couple days ago, actually it's on Wednesday. And here we have a gentleman here presenting a case for his bill that he's trying to propose to get passed and to make legal tender, again, gold and silver. So give you an idea of what's going on here. It says, American money proclaims that in God we trust, but one Utah lawmaker does not have unfailing trust in the U.S. dollar and pushed a bill Wednesday to allow state to hold some of its funds in gold and silver instead of Federal Reserve notes. It said it also was allowed to place gold and silver into a commercial repository, such as the local United Precious Metals Association. This would allow us to call so-called gold dollars or silver dollars, credit based on the value of the metals in its deposit to pay state bills. Representative Ken Ivory in West Jordan said his HB 224 could allow states to avoid relying solely on federal money during emergencies such as bank failures, a currency collapse, or currency war between countries. However, Ivory said he still was to work on the bill and asked the House Revenue and Taxation Committee to hold it for consideration later. But Ivory still gave some early arguments about why his idea might help save the state in possible emergencies and helping investments hold rather than Federal Reserve notes. It says Ivory held up a 1964 silver half-dollar coin. It says, in 1964, it's quoted, this little coin would have bought 3.5 gallons of gas. Today, it won't buy a fraction of a gallon of gas. He said, but the value of the metal of the coin would buy 3 gallons of gas. That's what we're talking about in terms of preserving purchasing power. He said the number of grams of gold needed to buy $1 has fallen dramatically through the years, so stockpiling gold itself would have been prevented a loss of inflation. College tuition price in gold is about the same as it was in the 1930s, Ivory said, adding that the price of food based on the value of gold has fallen over time. Ivory said an economic risk analysis recently completed for a state commission studying how to reduce dependence on federal funding figure the chance of a currency war is about 20% in coming years. So here you have a representative here laying out a case before the body of commissioners for the state of Utah, and he's kind of trying to prove a point that the fact that the metal has held its purchasing power for several years throughout time for the most part, and Federal Reserve notes in and of itself has not. So it's interesting to see how a politician is willing to put his career on the line and things like that to argue his case of precious metals and the importance of having them. So something worth thinking about. If you're interested, feel free to scroll below and read the article there. Next article is more information from Zero Hedge, and it said Utah bill sets stage for state depository, further encourages use of metals as money. And just to give you an idea what's going on here, I'll jump right to, it says Governor Greg Abbott signed legislation creating a Texas gold bullion. As I mentioned, there's other states. Precious metal depository in June of 2015. This facility will not only provide a secure place for individuals, business, cities, counties, governments, agencies, even other countries to store gold and other precious metals. The Texas law also creates a mechanism to facilitate the everyday use of gold and silver in business transactions. So talking a little bit about how, I guess, Utah will probably model some of their dealings as it is in Texas right now. So just to scroll a little further, give you an idea what's going on here. It says legal tender. In 2011, Utah became the first state in over 80 years to pass a law making gold and silver coin legal tender. The following year, the legislation followed up, approving a bill clarifying several tax measures and, more importantly, expanding the definition of specie to include gold and silver coin approved by the state. Passage of HB 224 would take the next step and further open the door for the use of gold and silver in everyday transactions in the state. In a speech to the UPM announcing the legislation, Ivory emphasized the connection between sound money and liberty. He told the story of a woman who tried to pay her bill at Walmart with gold coins. The cashier told her she needed real money, in quotations. When the lady went to the bank, the teller gave her face value for the 14 gold double eagle coins of $280. The value of the gold itself was over $20,000. So let me pause right there. So there's a young lady not long ago who went to actually redeem legal tender coins, as it mentioned, according to U.S. subsection Article 31, 5012. It says that United States coins are legal tender. So the young lady tried to go to, it looks like Walmart, and to use them for the face value of the coins, and was only able to actually purchase, or she would have purchased, well, I'm not sure why she would do this, but $280 worth of goods with the 14 double eagle coins that she had. But in actuality, the nominal value and the intrinsic value based upon the contents of the coins, which is gold, was $20,000. So you have 14 coins, face value is $280. The nominal intrinsic value is $20,000. So just a little story right there. Then it goes on to talk about the impact of the Federal Reserve. It says the United States Constitution states that Article 1, Section 10, no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payments of debt. States have simply ignored this constitutional provision for years. It's impossible for states to return to a constitutional money system when taxes on gold and silver as a commodity. State actions like Utah Constitutional Tender Act and the creation of a bullion depository in Texas take steps toward the constitutional requirement ignored for decades in every state, and sets the stage to undermine the monopoly of the Federal Reserve by introducing competition into the monetary system. So a lot of this legislation is being posed by state of Texas and Utah, as well as Arizona. They're all trying to basically even out the game a little bit. And as he hinted at, the idea of liberty, giving people choice other than being, forced to use Federal Reserve paper notes. So it's more to this in here. There's actually a video here from Representative Ivory if you're interested in hearing what he has to say there. But just some information if you're interested. Articles below. Next article here is Arizona Capital Times, and this right here is also a freshly article let out this week, and it's a new bill could pave the way to gold. So here you have some Federal Reserve notes. It says another year, another bill to legitimize gold and silver as legal tender in Arizona. For the past half a decade, Arizona state legislators have proposed bills stemming from concerns that the paper money printed by the Federal Reserve Bank is losing value. All of these bills do fairly well in both the House and Senate, but consistently get beaten down late in the process, usually with vetoes from the governor. So it's good to say that the governor, he wants to keep his job. He doesn't want to, tick anybody off, the higher ups, in Washington. So he just says, no, thank you. It says this year the bill is a little different than it has been. It focuses more on taxation of the gold and silver and less on the actual use of gold and silver at your neighborhood market. And it quoted, "This is merely removing a wrongly attached capital gain tax," according to Doug Arnett, a vocal member of the Arizona Constitutional Advocates who manages the website Arizona Sound Money Act, said the state isn't ready for it because the speaking language of liberty is a foreign language for most citizens. So he's saying basically most people don't really realize that they don't really have true freedom, so it probably won't really go anywhere. And so House Bill 2014, introduced by Representative Mark Fetchman and Representative Casa Grande, allows a tax deduction for the capital gains received from the exchange of one kind of legal tender, like paper money, for another, like gold coins. Today, if you own a $5 gold coin, it is worth exactly that, $5. And if you try to sell your gold coin today, a gram of gold is about $39.7. Your profit will be taxed. HB 2014 removes the tax, which proponents say is the first step to legitimizing gold and silver as legal tender. So the goal in Arizona is to not really make it fully a circulation medium of exchange, but more so remove some of the tax if you try to convert the metal into paper. So interesting move out there. Articles below if you're interested in reading more about it. Next article here is from the constitutionaltender.com. Looks like a personal website, but it actually gives an idea of some person who decided to kind of collect and keep track of all the states that have made attempts throughout the years to try to legalize or to reinstate gold and silver as legal tender in their states. And so just to give an idea here, it says in 2009 there's a process in Georgia, and there's a couple bills here. HB 430, which was attempted but yet shot down. We have SB 116. And then here's a couple states. If you click on the states, you can read more information as far as states that have put forth an effort to make gold and silver legal tender again. We have Arizona, most recent. We have Colorado, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maine, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska. So the list goes on and on. So there's several states that are taking action, trying to be proactive in reinstating gold and silver coins as legal tender. So definitely something worth reading into if you're interested. And the last article here, it's from the New York Times, and just doing my research, I scrolled through this and came across this, and it has to do with the legal tender decision and how the idea of implementing fiat currency or paper actually came into play. And it has a lot to do with the National Currency Act, which took place right during and after the Civil War time. And so just to give an idea here of the thinking process, if you were to go back 100 plus, how many ever years ago that is, 140, 150 years ago, and to see what the mind of the policymakers were at that particular time, can give you an idea of how far we've come in this whole monetary, madness of a world we're living in. And so just want to read a little bit, but also it's down below if you want to read further into it yourself. And it said it was written in June 6, 1863. So the general term of the Supreme Court of the state of New York in the First District has decided that the United States notes, which were implemented for the Civil War's sake, are not a legal tender for the payment of debts contracted previous to the Act of Congress bearing the date February 25th, 1862. So basically saying anytime, any contract or any obligation that was prior to the passing of that law, the people who have that agreement aren't responsible or don't have to accept paper for their debts or whatever services rendered. They can actually demand money, which was at that time gold and silver. Predominantly, I'm sure it was probably gold for higher debts. It says all the judges concurred, each delivering a long opinion in support of the conclusion which has just been announced. And then it summarizes a couple points that the jurisdiction of judges came to at that point. It says the United States being in the possession of certain delegated powers and not being in possession of any powers except such as have been delegated to them, they may coin money because the Constitution says that they may, but they cannot issue paper because the Constitution nowhere permits it. One. Number two, the Constitution having prevented the states from making anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payments of debt. It follows that the courts of a state cannot make United States paper or any other paper such a tender or compel a creditor to receive it in satisfaction of a debt. Two, so the first one, just to summarize it, Congress, the legal bodies of our country, according to the Constitution, is only allowed to coin money, never print money. Second one, states can't force people to take paper and when they don't want paper. because they don't have a right to issue paper as well, according to this here. It says the act of Congress also alluded to impairs the obligation of contracts and is therefore unconstitutional. And as to the first reason, so long as it remains an open question whether the act of stamping pieces of paper with various emblems and words intended to give them value is or is not coining money. So long lawyers and courts will defer among themselves, and so long some of the courts will defer from the Treasury Department of the United States. But the Treasury Department have the printing press and the paper, and their argument is the argument of the strong. 9 out of 10 of us do not believe that stamping paper notes is coining money, but in view of the situation of affairs, we conclude not to stand upon the precise meaning of words. So at that point, they're playing with words. They're basically saying 9 out of 10 people don't really consider stamping paper, put numbers on it, is, constitutes as coining money. But as you can see, here we are 150 or however long years along the way, and most people only know Federal Reserve notes, which once again is paper stamped by the Federal Reserve Bank and issued into a circulation for us to use as a form of money. According to, these decision makers, a long time ago, that was not the case. So this is what's happening in the news. Thought I would share it with you, take a few minutes and share a couple articles of what's going on that you may not hear anywhere else or on mainstream news, and give you something to think about. And as always, it's intended to give you more educational material so that you can stay in tune to monetary affairs going on in your world and how it impacts you. So this is what's happening in the gold and silver world today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it informative. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below. And if you found it informative and want to share it with your family and friends, feel free to do so. The best way to get more people involved and help them improve their monetary awareness is to give them information directly from multiple sources to give them something to think about. So enjoy your day. Leave me a comment. If you're new to RTD, click the subscribe button. Look forward to bringing you more news. Thank you.